Hello and welcome to this episode of Token Jester, an insight into outsider dance. I'm Aishani Ghosh and I'm a company artist with Seeta Patel Dance, and we created this podcast series to delve into Bharatanatyam, the UK dance industry, and so much more. On this episode, we are super lucky to be on conversation with Seetal Kaur and Seeta Patel and myself. So a little bit of a treat for you all. Let's just start. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I was going to say, I just realised so many people in the email say Seeta to me.
Really?
They misspell my name.
I get Seetal, and I get Seema, I get Seetal, I get all sorts of names as well.
But yeah, no, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And just, happy to chat about all the things that I love and I'm passionate about with you guys who have very similar passions. So
Yes, absolutely. I think it'd be great if you just introduce yourself however you want, who you are, what you do.
Yeah. Seetal, I have many different facets or hats, you can say, as many of us do. I work part-time for the Arts Council. That's kind of my day job. I'm a relationship manager in the Midlands area. So I'm based kind of Leicester, Nottingham, Birmingham, and the surrounding area. And my job is kind of to work with organizations that work in dance and have also this diversity element. So I work with organizations who, develop dance for disabled people or work in a lot of different kind of dance forms. So I'm a relationship manager, part-time of the week. And then the rest of my week is split between being a mum to a 4-year-old and trying to keep up my own Kathak practice, so Indian classical dance practice. And then I also have founded and are still trying to run a CIC, which is kind of a community organization called ForwardCulture for South Asian women and girls. So that's me. I think there's like 4 different things that I do.
Yeah, not a lot at all. just an easy life.
My whole life has been like jack of all trades, like master of none situation. So now I'm trying to like slowly reduce them and streamline my life as much as I can. But I think I've always been this kind of, fingers in many pies, they say. But I realize you can't get very far doing that. So
Well, I don't know about that. I feel like being a freelancer is essentially that you have to be, a producer, a costume designer, everything, and especially in the early days of making and being a freelance artist. I think Aishani probably knows that everything. And so I don't know. I think we see it as a negative thing, but actually it makes us really rounded and grounded, and I think it's just about not burning out really to make sure when you're doing so many things. But
ultimately, it's true. And just having that kind of I guess for me, I just want to have more of a clearer vision like going forward as well, because before it's like you have multiple different goals of things you want to do and create or see or develop, and sometimes that leads to burnout, right? Because you're just like putting your energy in so many different things. But I think if you have kind of overall vision of right, this is leading me to this one or 2 places, then I guess that can help you kind of manage it all. But I love what I do, and I just feel like everything has an underlying thread, and I've realized there's a bit of a pattern, and it's just to do with like interrogation of diasporic identity and like South Asian identity. Everything I do is very much around that cultural identity and kind of investigation and exploration of that. So I bring that perspective to everything I do, even motherhood. Like I'm constantly, thinking about that and thinking about the future and how it fits within the context of this country, but then also the world at the moment. So that's definitely like an underlying thread to everything I do, I think. Yeah.
Amazing. I think that kind of segues us into the fact that you love research, because you're currently researching as a part of your role in Arts Council, I believe.
It's been an interesting journey because I always wanted to kind of do higher education or like do some more studying. I studied at UCL for my undergraduate. I did linguistics, which is really random. And, I also did like an evening course in Sanskrit. So I was like trying to find courses where I could do kind of South Asian languages and social history. But yeah, I ended up doing Sanskrit at SOAS as well. And then I always thought, oh, I'd love to do like a master's in something. And I had my eye on this master's at Warwick. It's like international cultural policy and management. So I was like, oh, how can I do that? And how can I get the money to do that? Because it's like £10,000 or something, you know. But then basically the Arts Council's great in some ways. Like there's no, I've talked to people who work in the corporate sector and they're like, got this car, got this benefit, this pay rise, da 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 da. And, you know, we're working in charity and government.
Limited capacity.
But they do offer a lot of development opportunities, and that's kind of their main selling point with staff. So they offered me to do a master's in business administration as like an MBA program. So as part of that, my final research project is around the case for a national kind of repertory company for South Asian dance, because essentially what we've realized, and through, you know, funding Seeta Patel Dance and multiple other touring companies, there's so much opportunity for, well, so much more opportunity for dancers at a professional level now. And dance companies like yourselves are looking for dancers at that level. And then we have so many different kind of training opportunities, but there's just that professional development and that like those routes to really progress as a dancer and reach a certain level are missing. And it was just looking at, okay, what does ballet and contemporary dance have, and what are the established kind of things there institutionally, but how can that be enabled for other dance forms and diverse dance forms like South Asian dance, whatever that means. Obviously, it's just a inaccurate term in a lot of ways. But so that's my kind of dissertation I'm trying to finish at the moment. And as part of that, within the Arts Council, I've led discussions and roundtables looking at, so Arts Council funded, so 2024? So it's like the NPO, the whole National Portfolio Organisations, that's been a key change. So just kind of reflecting on that change, reflecting on that investment, and what is that gap that's always been there, but it's more pronounced now in a lot of ways. What does that look like? What does that route need to look like? And what do companies like Seetal Kaur Dance need from dancers in the future? My research was kind of looking at that and just, what pathways are there for dancers? And essentially it's just, there aren't. I mean, you know, Aishani, it's just, it's very dark kind of woodland of just, you know, trying to find your way, and everyone finds their own way in some way, but how can it be more equitable? How can we, as South Asian dancers or other dancers like us from other dance forms as well, get the same opportunities that ballet and contemporary dancers have, or those from more established and institutionalized dance forms? And it's just making it more equitable. But obviously you can't be like, oh, we need exactly the same thing, because it's not the same thing. So there's a lot of research that kind of, I've been kind of going into it. What would it look like? And getting closer, hopefully. I think all of us, I feel this like collective effort, and it's just trying to carry on that collective effort towards it.
I mean, that's really interesting to hear. I actually had no idea you were doing so many things with that the Arts Council supported its staff to train in that way. That's really good to hear. I mean, obviously with this round of MPOs, a lot of South Asian dance organizations came into the portfolio, and that's a big shift. And I suspect you had a big sort of, you know, role in it, not influencing that, but obviously giving knowledge into why that was needed and why that's important. I mean, I have worked in some ballet companies and bigger institutions, and I'm always in awe of how much they seem to have. Obviously, we don't know the inner machinations of these companies and the troubles everyone seems to have on some level. But definitely, ballet companies have the potential for more philanthropic giving. It's just more in the public eye. There are more branches of it that span into the commercial possibilities as well, which I think is just, being in niche art forms is always going to be a harder push.
It's a class thing as well, isn't it?
It's a massive class thing.
That is often a protected characteristic or aspect of when we talk about equality and diversity. It's just sometimes it's missed out, or it's like
that's because it's not about equity. Yeah, and I like to make that distinction as much as I can, because I think equality is a bit of a sort of guides us down a different path, maybe that isn't as helpful than compared to equity, because equity really encompasses intersectionality of protected characteristics. Yeah. So yes, sure, if you're a woman in a male field, that's going to be hard. But if you're a white woman in a male field, your privilege sort of shifts slightly compared to a woman of color in those fields, and so on and so forth. And I think that we absolutely need to keep that in mind. And we were just talking about this beforehand, just around, and I've mentioned it before in previous podcasts, I think, just around, the distribution of much needed resource in a dwindling resource, poor sector, that you do need to consider different communities also not as monoliths. Yes. There are social strata within different ethnic groups and within different protected characteristics that I believe should really be considered. And, from a personal level, I think it does impact the politics and the kind of things we're putting into the world as well, and how we're trying to engage in more equitable practices. The company, my company is really working with the resource that we have to make sure the people we paid, the work with, are paid equitably, and if not, even sometimes equity rates aren't sufficient for people coming from overseas. And again, I think we see work that's finished and polished on stages, but the pathway to get to those places is drastically different for some people compared to others.
Yeah, and there's just so many multiple variables and factors affecting it. I feel like we have like an imperfect, it's just so clunky, this system of analyzing diversity and protected characteristics. It just still feels like not the best way.
It sounds like it's done by corporates.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some information there that helps, but
like a lot of the organizations that are supported with the Arts Council as well, and especially when we look at disabled dancers or people experience that, it's like their approach is kind of putting the human first, the individual first, and like, what do you need? What are your access needs? And that kind of idiosyncratic or unique way of applying it. And it's like, yeah, we need to look at the human experience, the human being first, and maybe we'll get there, hopefully. But it just definitely feels like this is not a accurate way of managing it. But
I guess, and I think what's interesting is that sometimes with these things that feel so overwhelming, actually we aren't a very big sector. And in a sector, we're even a smaller part of that sector. Yes. And when you think about South Asian arts, you including theatre and music, which are really much bigger aspects of this sector than dance is, we're quite, in that sense, there's a manageability in that. There's a possibility, I think, of being more bespoke and nuanced, because the numbers aren't big. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like when I'm in some spaces talking about these kind of things or consulting, that sometimes we're trying to do these big overarching things, and I have actually like, no, it needs to be more refined and nuanced. And I know that can feel, we create data and, sort of ways to assess things and analyses and things like that, but it does remove a lot of the lived experiences, which again are manageable and I'm sure could be analyzed. I'm not an analyst, so I don't know, but it feels like there's possibly another way that can allow some more radical action.
Yeah, I agree. When I say to people it's like working at the Arts Council, and I've been there for 6 years now, I always say it's like when you go into the Matrix and you take the what is it? I don't know.
One of the pills. Yeah.
The pill able to kind of enter the matrix. I really felt that. It's like, all the like green numbers and everything going down. I could just see like the money. I could see money like going to South Bank Centre, money going into here, money going into there, and like there was all these like pie charts. Full review of like, but in the Midlands area, when you like, it's sort of like so data driven, and it's like, okay, the Midlands area for dance, we've got a little pie chart. How much money is that? And it's like 2/3 of that is for a big ballet organization or this, or it's like you can see that distribution of the money, and but if you look at it through different lenses, it looks different ways. And I think that's been an amazing experience being part of the Arts Council. Like I said, you just see the matrix. Sometimes when you're in the sector, it's hard to see how the whole like structure works and why all these like policy decisions end up with money going to certain places and not certain places, and how much money there actually is or not. And it's a huge eye-opening experience. And then you can but then at the same time, being someone from a diverse background, from a South Asian background, and navigating that, and when you go higher up and you're interacting with people from local authorities, or there's politics, and it's all determined by political decisions in a lot of ways, because Arts Council gets funding
and they rely on the data for that.
It's interesting, all of these things, and you're like navigating.
But data is interesting, isn't it? Because again, I don't think it often tells the full story as much as people think it does. So literally, I was in a meeting the other day, I can't remember, but some guy was like, well, it'll be easy to assess who should get an uplift in funding or who should keep continuing to get funding. You just look at their output, the more, and I was like, that's a really dangerous way of thinking, because if you are in a niche art form that doesn't automatically get invited to these spaces, and when it does, they fill up very quickly with, the handful of people that do those things. And, how many times you feel like, oh, we've had the South Asian artist here already, as though we're all one thing and we deliver one unique, specific thing that is the same for everyone. And I was just like, oh, that's scary that at this point, someone is still suggesting that's how we do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Arts Council is trying to get better with, especially its diversity reporting, because there's often this statistic around diverse led. So it's like, okay, 50% or more of your board or leadership needs to be with protected characters or from certain backgrounds, etc. So I think we've realised, and in our last few reports with Arts Council, it's kind of more about, okay, there's a nuance behind that. There's the numbers, but then there's also but they're working with this number of artists, or there are these people in the advisory board. They might not be in the actual board of directors, but we still stand by that, because obviously those positions have certain defined power structures and governance roles. So it's just like, I think definitely realize that as well, that data tells a story, and you can kind of manipulate it sometimes in a way to tell certain stories. So that's been really eye-opening, and having that understanding as well.
Because as an NPO, I know it feels, I don't have to deal with all the data, but it feels like we have to collect a lot of data. And the pressures, but I'm a very environmentally conscious individual, separate from everything else in terms of my work. And so, those things are important to me, but the pressures to do something as a company that needs talent from overseas, because that talent pipeline isn't here, you're automatically at a on the back footing in terms of your impact on flight, because of flights and things. And we're constantly trying to work at that. But to have the same parameters that apply to some places where they can have,
they're touring whole companies.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Or that they can get their dancers from the UK.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That doesn't. Yeah. So the pressure, I feel like this on a global level, where you can't have the same parameters in developing countries in terms of economic, a global sort of climate impact, even though they're causing those issues. Do you know what I mean? You're applying a very colonial sort of trying to be equal when actually it's not equitable. Yeah, no. And I feel like that all the time about lots of these things. Like we're forced in order to be invited to the big higher profile platforms, we need to offer quality. I know that there's been aspersions on the quality of South Asian dance produced over the last, however many decades. People have said that out loud to me, that, there isn't very good work, or the work is declining in quality. But you have to understand what are the impacts, other than an individual artist not being what someone considers good. It's also about the talent pipeline, and those things. You can't put a bandage on the top level of that and expect it to be fixed.
Yes.
And then you lay the other things on around needing to be responsible in terms of climate change and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
There needs to be more nuance in what that is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I guess there's also, like you're saying, talent pipeline and things like that. There's also big shifts in the industry that have happened over the last 10, 20 years. And sometimes it's about acknowledging where those shifts are taking us, whether good or bad. And trying to progress with it always doesn't align with maybe moral codes, or maybe align with artistic visions, because we're humans and those are constantly evolving, and that's the whole point of being an artist. And I think we get sucked into the numbers and you forget that actually art isn't for consumption, it is to create, and it's not going to be liked by all. So then when you try to quantify it, it's naturally going to be a grey area, and then you bring in like white power, and you bring in race, and you bring in gender, and it just becomes even more, I think, of a dark hole sometimes to go down under.
Yeah.
But
I try and keep, like, sometimes it's really hard, especially with when the Black Lives Matter, the murder of George Floyd happened, and that kind of rose up. It's just like keeping optimistic and keeping solutions focused, and trying to see ways that things can change for the better. And I think finding allies within the Arts Council, finding allies, that allyship is huge. That's been a huge thing for me. And luckily, most of the people, if not all of them, that definitely I work with on a day-to-day basis are really, really on a level with it, and they get it. But even just recently, obviously, with all of these flags and the graffiti, and I mean, I don't want to highlight that too much because that's what obviously they want. But it's, as someone working at the Arts Council from a ethnic background, or whatever you want to call it. It's just having those allies and pushing forward in a solutions focused way really helps me. But you can't say it doesn't affect you. Like, someone was like, yeah, it's there to intimidate people, and I was like, well, it's kind of working sometimes.
it is
Absolutely. I'm sitting at home terrified most of the time about that. There are people on my street that have the flags, and those, and you do have anxiety, and I think we can't underestimate that underlying constant anxiety. I mean, I feel it around the genocide in Gaza all the time, and how obviously what we're going through is nothing in comparison, but it's so permeating. Like I have moments where I just realize how horrific it is just to even function in a society like this, and I feel completely paralyzed sometimes, where I'm just like, what is happening? And though those times it's hard to be solution focused. I'm in the same. It's like, well, I know I can't change the big things, but I'm trying to do it within the company. And what we offer, what we can do within my tiny sphere of influence. But even that starts to take its toll when the world is burning.
Absolutely, I totally agree. But definitely having allies and solidarity, that's like the only thing that's kind of got me through.
Yes.
Like, not being necessarily trying to find ways to be in spaces where you don't feel alone in those feelings or those perspectives. You don't want to be in an echo chamber then as well, but then at the same time, I do appreciate being around allies, and I feel that solidarity with people a lot in the arts.
I feel like I don't find the allyship where people might expect that to be found in terms of certain communities, because you have certain maybe physical characteristics or racial characteristics. I actually find allyship in unexpected places, and I hold on to it tight because I feel sad that I don't necessarily find it in the South Asian sector.
Yes.
In the dance sector specifically.
Yeah.
And I struggle. I don't find it within the family space either.
Yeah.
It's such a complex sort of layered world of South Asian-ness.
Yes.
and it's constantly reflected back to us as though it's a monolith, but it isn't, and we live the fact that it's not. I feel that difference and that estrangement from different aspects of my culture all the time.
And I think through all the research you were saying that's been done, and we have the South Asian Dance Equity Project that was there that came through last year as well, and that's been really great in kind of influencing things a little bit further to say, I think we all knew obviously it was there, all these aspects, but having a research project to really bring it forward to the forefront was really great to see. And I went to a session in Leicester, and just meeting some of these people who practice dance in their communities in rural parts of India, and you know that it exists obviously, but sometimes when you just meet them and see their practices, and it's just amazing, and you're like, yes, there is incredible diversity here. And then we found out that so many of, I can't remember which background, but these kind of rural practices and indigenous practices, they'd moved to there was a significant community in Ashford and certain Arts Council priority places, and I was like, we really need to get on this and understand, that.
But they're not necessarily going to come to the Arts Council, are they? No. They're going to, but there needs to. This is what I mean. Sometimes
Asian dance.
No, but that's the thing. If you don't see yourself in some spaces or that, even if you offer those things through the Arts Council, these communities, that's what I've always been, that you need to be proactive sometimes if you want to make that change. You can't expect just to have the opportunity and people come to you, because the language of that, the negotiation of whatever that is, you don't even see yourself in these. I've said this before, where I've been invited to be on panels, and I said, well, if this was an open call and you wanted a panelist of South Asian descent or whatever, I'd be like, I wouldn't go for it. I wouldn't dream of it. It's because you picked up the phone and asked me, and you explained why my sort of contribution would have been helpful, that I did it, and that it was remunerated, and all of those sorts of things, that labor was remunerated, that expertise was. And I think, that is definitely a shift, where sometimes I know I've gone through that transition. It happened sort of over COVID with Black Lives Matter. A lot of people reached out to me, panicking. White people reached out, needing a voice to talk to, and all of those sorts of things. And then you realize that that's consultancy and that's labor. And now there is a shift of that being valued and giving money. But again, going back to these sort of communities and pockets doing things where they don't even see themselves reflected, they're very self-sufficient in a way. They become self-sufficient. But actually, if the Arts Council were to be more proactive in that journey as well, that's an option.
Absolutely. And it's just understanding that nuance, and I guess just I was kind of relating it back to what you're saying about, we're not a monolith, and it's just when you meet these people, and they're here, and there's so much diversity and beauty and incredible people and practices of South Asian dance that we just don't have any idea about. And I think I'm really trying to push that forward with my dissertation, with my research, just to say we really need to reframe this, and we really need to think about everything can't exist all together. We can't have a South Asian thing where we're just, bringing everything together. It has to be done in a certain way that acknowledges these aspects. One of the kind of things I'm looking at is the National Youth Dance Company.
I was going to say,
just, how we can kind of learn from that and how that works. And it's just kind of, understanding what frame do we look at things through. I mean, more and more I'm seeing now is dancers, incredibly, strong, talented dancers, and it's just that hybridization happening where they're really strong, but in obviously multiple forms, dance forms, and they're kind of mixing it, but they're also keeping it separate.
Aishani,
incredible. And that, influence of social media and all of that, I'm just seeing that more and more. So it's also kind of, acknowledging that and where young dancers are today.
Yeah, and I think we're in an era now where identity is the big thing.
Yeah.
Everyone's seeking for identity and the purpose, or ikigai, in many books. We're seeing it now, and the books are being published and podcasts and everything. And I think a lot of new wave second generation see hybridity as a way of self-identity, which maybe before it was more forced upon, but now it's a choice. Sometimes I question whether the choice is from a lack of deep training. Maybe that comes from personal experience for me. Sometimes it is very much so a very in-depth conversation with colonialism and history of our art forms and history of this country. So it's it's confusing to clump even more, because each person has their own individual experience, and it's how we support a community without boxing them in, like you're saying. And we all know about tokenism, we all know about tick boxing, we all know about data. So I guess an interest of mine, maybe, to question is, when you talk about allyship and support and trying to find solutions, is that what ForwardCulture is to you? And that kind of creating that space?
Yeah. So ForwardCulture is literally directly related to what you just said about like hybridization as well.
Okay.
So we founded it because we were at university, my co-founder and I, and we just found that like there was no space for us to actually kind of be proud of our cultural identity. There was a lot of shaming going on about being South Asian, a lot of denial about that happening that we encountered. Like I went to the uni Hindu society or Indian society meetup, and I said, "Hi, I'm Seetal," and they're like, "I love how you say your name all fresh."
Oh my goodness.
Interesting. And there was a couple of other instances like that. I'm Seeta. No. Yeah, so it was just like these incidents that happened, and
we're never Indian enough, are we?
No.
Yeah.
Until we're too Indian.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that happening. And then my co-founder Amina, she's great. She grew up going to India like multiple times a year. I'm sure she won't mind saying this, but yeah, it's her dad is Gujarati and her mom is Pakistani. So it was an interesting thing with her, and she just was fluent in Urdu, fluent in Gujarati. She had this real Essex. She's got an Essex vibe. She's from Elf, but she's an Essex girl, and we connected on that level. But yeah, basically both of us are really proud or interested in our cultural identity. I mean, our South Asian background, whatever that is, and we wanted to kind of bring it with it.
I want to be in that.
Yeah,
I'm also raised in Essex, Ilford. Ilford.
Yeah. So then we were going online. This was the Tumblr days. Okay, we are
back in the days.
Before kind of Instagram. Instagram was just coming about. We just found all these incredible brown girls online who are like doing the same kind of thing, and some were in Australia, some were in America, all around the world. We just found they were like mixing up their fashion. They were just, then some of them were posting on really political topics as well. But then, yeah, just exploring, expressing their South Asian-ness and being a South Asian woman openly, but then also kind of criticizing it as well. So yeah, then we created Two Brown Girls, which is our blog, and that became really popular. We started interviewing people and platforming this idea of what a brown girl is, who is proud of her cultural identity and also questions it. So it became this like platform to kind of, like you said, interrogate cultural identity, but also express that hybridization. It's been done. We thought we were really cool, but then I'm just like, it's like, but like back, there was like so many cultural movements. There was Daytimers is coming back out again, my parents' generation, and it's just always been there. This was just doing that same thing in a different way. And then we wanted to do more events and have more funding. So then we founded our CIC, and we've done a mentoring program as well. Our mentoring program is like one of the most successful things that we've done, because not only does it provide kind of career mentoring, and we link up brown girls with brown women in the industry that they're interested in, but we also have a really strong angle a really strong kind of training for the mentors around cultural what do we call it, where there's like issues that they're coming up with their cultural identity, cultural conflict. And there's some like kind of coaching theories where it's about like conflict management, and you can apply that to kind of cultural conflict as well. So we've kind of created a little bit of like a theory and a model around it. So they get career mentoring, but they also get cultural mentoring. It's like, okay, my parents are not supportive of my career choice, or my parents or my family don't know I'm this or that, or I'm interested in this. How can it be negotiated, particularly with their family and their cultural background, and that enables them to be more themselves and thrive. So that's been really successful. We've done 4 rounds of the mentoring program so far, and we're trying to do some more rounds, but it's just kind of like getting the funding and getting the partnerships, because we want to partner with universities and schools. That's where the girls are. And we found that particularly that 18 to 25 age, or 17 to 25 age, is like a sweet spot when it comes to interrogating this kind of aspect. But when we've gone younger, it's kind of like, what are you talking about? I don't really not really sure. So there's definitely kind of an evolution point that happens. So yeah, I think universities will be great to work with. Similarly, like us, you know, it's just you're in that point where you're like, who am I? What do I want to do? And it's just maybe finding some freedom and not sure what to do with it. And then, you know, coming in with older sister or older kind of not auntie, we're not auntie level.
I am.
I think it's an amazing kind of 2 hats that you're juggling, where you get to explore cultural identity via research, because I think we're in an era where unfortunately we prioritize the Western form of research and that data-driven output over maybe experience and lived experience. But then you also get to have the lived experience with ForwardCulture, and you get to see things that you were witnessing and researching maybe, and it come into fruition a bit more quicker than maybe it could with Arts Council, and with like direct control of your wants and maybe vision.
Like with Arts Council, you're kind of, you know, assessing funding applications, and you're behind a desk, and you're kind of like, okay, but one of the best things about working at Arts Council is when you advise someone on their funding application and they get it. Honestly, it's like such a great feeling. And then you see them, what they're able to do with that money, what they're able to do with that project, and just having a small part in that in some way is just really, really fulfilling, especially when it comes to, there's like a developing your creative practice fund, and seeing artists being able to just focus on what they want to do and their craft and practice and learn and train, and you're just like, yes, this is what we need, you know. So that's one of the best parts about working there, is that you feel like you do make that difference sometimes. But with ForwardCulture,
you have to have positive and negative stuff.
With ForwardCulture, you literally see it. Like you get the emails, and you get like, oh my gosh, mentoring, and you meet the mentors and meet the mentees, and it's just right there, which is really great as well. But it all takes a lot of work, but we try and split my time.
I guess it seems kind of like geared towards this idea of community, whatever that is. So what are the main, I don't know if you want to give any insight, what are the things that you think as community, if you want to clump us into South Asian or not, like what's the thing that you think we need the most support with?
I think that's what we're trying to do through ForwardCulture, is like spaces where we can actually connect and actually meet and actually discuss, and in a safe way, like interrogate and share. That's, I feel like it's just dwindling when we look at how previous generations would definitely go to the temple, like they definitely use like more religious context to do that. That was their place where they'd find solace and safety, and a lot of the time, maybe not all the time, but a lot of the time, that kind of community we need to, as a generation and for the next generations, think about what that looks like for us, because I'm not sure many young people are going to those same spaces, you know. So that's what we tried with Two Brown Girls, which is to create an online space, and that did work. We did get like direct messages from girls saying, I live in a white majority neighborhood in Australia and your blog has really helped me to feel proud of my identity. And it's like, whoa, wow, you know, it's just online and you feel like it's changed now. Tumblr was different. There's a lot of noise now, but if in some way that can be magnified, and we've done that through events and things, but I just feel like it needs to happen more. And you know, that whole thing about like a third space. A third space between school and home and those kind of obligations that you have, and somewhere that is a safe space to discuss and be and explore.
Maybe just to exist as well.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that kind of temple vibe without the religious maybe connotations, or if you want the religious connotations, yeah, but it's like, you know, that same thing that our older generation got from gurdwaras and temples and mandirs or mosques or whatever is recreated in some way that's relevant. I think that would be a game changer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to conclude the podcast.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you have anything that you would like to?
I'm just really happy that you've come along and done this with us. Again, we talk a lot about what the other podcasts will be, and we bounce ideas off each other. It is Aishani's baby, which I feel also very proud of, that we've supported her to do this through the company. But having guests like yourself that, you know, there's a kindredness, absolutely, but none of us are interested in an echo chamber. And I think that this is such important dialogue to have. And I hope that these sorts of conversations, again, solution focus is so final. I think these things are growing. And I think that knowing that there are places like ForwardCulture, again, as Seeta Patel Dance and the other spaces that we're just as us as individuals, I think it makes me feel good in a world that I'm terrified of right now.
Yeah.
So I really am grateful that you've come to do this with us.
Honestly, if you want to create any more spaces, we can maybe collaborate.
Next step.
Happy to. But yeah, thank you so much. And it's great to see the work you guys are doing. And please, wishing you all the success and strength with it. And yeah, we just need to stick together.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Cool. Thank you.